Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we're digging into a CNN article, came out April 28th, 2025.
Right. It gives us a sort of snapshot of Canadian federal politics.
Yeah, an early peek focusing on, the main players, Justin Trudeau for the Liberals.
And Pierre Poilievre for the Conservatives.
Exactly. And the article mentions some projected seat counts that, well, they definitely caught my eye.
Mm-hmm. They suggest a pretty significant shift might be happening. So let's unpack what these numbers could mean.
Okay, so first off, the Conservatives. The article seems to suggest they're pulling ahead.
It does. It talks about a substantial lead in projected seats for them.
Substantial, okay.
Yeah. While the article we're looking at doesn't give, like, exact numbers the way it's phrased,
Yeah.
it strongly suggests that if things stay this way,
Then Poilievre could be looking at forming the next government.
that's the implication. It would be a big change, potentially. A real shift in who holds power.
Right. And that naturally leads to Pierre Poilievre as the potential next prime minister. So what does this CNN piece then say about the current PM, Justin Trudeau, and the Liberals? How are they faring in these projections?
Well, the report paints a picture of the Liberals
Yeah.
trailing, quite significantly, actually, in those same projected seats.
Trailing significantly. Ooh.
Yeah. And given Trudeau is the incumbent, the current leader,
Right.
a gap like that suggests they're facing a real uphill battle to stay in power. It implies, a considerable swing in voter sentiment, at least according to these polls.
Does the article give any clues why, like specific regions or groups moving away from the Liberals?
This particular excerpt doesn't really drill down into that level of detail.
Oh, okay.
It seems more focused on the overall national numbers, the big picture trend, rather than the specifics of where the votes are shifting.
Got it. So broad strokes for now.
Exactly.
Okay, so sticking with those broad strokes, if the Conservatives do have this substantial lead, what kind of government scenario does that suggest? Are we talking majority, minority? Does the article hint at that?
Well, with words like substantial and significant,
Mhm.
the most likely interpretation, if these numbers held true on Election Day,
Would be a conservative majority.
that seems to be the strongest implication, yeah. A majority government generally has an easier time passing its agenda, right?
Right, more legislative power.
The article doesn't really give much room to talk about a minority scenario based on this reported lead.
Okay, makes sense. And does the CNN report mention anything about, the next steps, timelines, how a government forms, that kind of thing?
No, the piece we have here doesn't get into the procedural side of things.
So it stops at the projections.
Pretty much. It's focused on the potential outcome based on the polling data available at that time, not the mechanics of what happens after the votes are counted.
Understood. So let's just quickly recap what we've gleaned from this CNN snapshot then.
Okay.
It points to a Canadian federal election projection where the Conservatives, led by Pierre Poilievre, hold a significant lead in seats.
A lead large enough that it suggests a potential conservative majority government.
And consequently, possibly the end of Justin Trudeau's time as prime minister.
That's the core takeaway, yes.
Mm-hmm.
The report flags a potentially major shift in Canadian politics based on those April 2025 numbers.
Right, a potential shift. Important qualifier there.
Definitely. It's based on projections.
So let's leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay.
When you see polls suggesting such a potentially significant change in government, like from one major party to another in a country like Canada, what are some of the immediate challenges or maybe even opportunities that typically pop up right away? Something for you to consider.